Someone You Should Know. A program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, hello again and welcome to another edition of Someone You Should Know. Glad to have you with us again. We're going to have a great show today. You are going to meet an absolutely amazing young lady, and we'll get right to it just as soon as I tell you that this show is produced and sponsored by our good friend Christine Dean, who is the DFW Networking Diva. You know, if you have any issues with your marketing, with your website, with how to just do things better for the media and for social media, reach out to Christine Dean. She can help you with podcasting. She can help you with advertising. She can help you with anything that you need to improve your business presence on the internet. She is wonderful at what she does, and she does it for us every week right here. Well, folks, there are, in my life, some people that have just touched me in ways that is really hard to explain, because they're people that I believe are bigger than life. And that is my guest today, who I will explain to you why. But Pat Zuczek, welcome to Someone You Should Know. I am so happy to have you here, Pat.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be any place where I'm indoors and out of the 100-degree heat today.
And folks, we're going to be talking a lot about athletics today, because Pat is very involved in it, has been for a long time, and she is part of a senior organization for senior athletes. And the senior games in America is an incredible thing. I have known many seniors that have participated in the senior games over the years, especially in those 20 years when I was running. And I am so in awe of what you and your fellow athletes do. The first question I'm going to throw at you, Pat, is when did you become an athlete? Have you always been into sports from the time you were in school?
So I grew up on the edge of a park in Sayreville, New Jersey. And my dad built our house right on the edge of a park with 5 ball fields, basketball court, football field. And all of the kids in the neighborhood were told, you can't go to the front and cross the street, but you can go from the backyard as far as you can go. And they would throw a ball in the middle of 20 kids, and we're entertained the whole time. And I have to say, I learned a lot of life lessons there, about being fair, about letting everybody try, from the littlest to the oldest, things like that. It really was a fun way to grow up. It kept us out of a lot of trouble, and it kept us running around. But organized sports for girls back then were just starting. And, we had lots of Little League baseball. I could watch my brothers play, but I couldn't play. And I really didn't get into organized sports until I got to high school.
Okay, so when you got into high school, was track and field one of the athletic opportunities for girls?
Not my my high school was 3 years, sophomore, junior, and senior, and we had field hockey, basketball, and softball, and gymnastics. Now, I am not a tiny person, so gymnastics wouldn't work for me, but field hockey was pretty big. Basketball was fairly new. Even softball at the time had only been around for, I think, 6 or 8 years. And track and field came in later on. I think my senior year, we finally got a women's track program going.
So with the park across the street from you, you said there were several ball fields. Were those baseball fields, football fields? Obviously, a lot of those fields would be adaptable to lacrosse and volleyball and all of that. Did you just jump into whatever you could get into?
Everything that we could play, we played as kids. I remember especially when I was smaller, it was baseball with a little rubber ball, because we weren't strong enough to hit a real baseball. And then it went on to, all the way. We played wiffle ball. I remember John Smith next door. Oh my gosh, he could make that plastic ball dance in all kinds of directions. But wiffle ball and then softball. We'd play soccer a little bit with the only rule was you have to score a goal. Otherwise, you could run and push and do anything you want. But we would play soccer and we would play tag and we would play, touch football. We'd play football in the snow in New Jersey. We have our own games, but we would have softball games that were like 50-inning games. We just play and play and play.
Or you'd stop at sundown and you pick it up another day.
Exactly.
Where you left off.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And, and it's interesting because when you think of how kids are involved today, I'm not so sure that sports is as high on their priority list as it was when we were younger. I mean, all our parents would just tell us. I grew up on a parkway, which was just a large grassy area, and so it was multi-use, very much the same as you. But Mom would just say, just go out there. You didn't have to get on the phone and call your friends. You just went because they were there. And then when somebody's mom rang a bell for dinner, we'd all leave and we'd all go home for dinner at the time. Am I right?
Oh, that's exactly right. You just went out there and found a bunch of kids to play with, and the Polish church was a few hundred yards away. When the bells rang at 6:00, then it was time for everybody to go home.
that was your alarm clock.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your growing up back in New Jersey and all, where you went to school and what your career path was all about.
So I went to Sayreville War Memorial High School. You think that's kind of like predictive for where I ended up. And it's kind of funny because our mascot was the Bombers, and it was a real bomb at the time.
Oh, really?
So we've corrected things a little bit. Sayreville High is still the Bombers, but it is the aircraft, the bomber aircraft.
Right.
And I'll tell you, when I got through, I have 4 brothers, 2 older, 2 younger. My mom waitressed. My dad worked in a factory for a long time and then started his own home improvement business. There was no going to college. And so right after high school, I joined the Air Force. And it was the best thing for me because I can look back and say I was pretty clueless back then. And the Air Force took care of me. It made sure that I got a little tiny paycheck back in the 70s. It made sure I had a place to sleep, I had food, and then it taught me how to work on aircraft. I was an avionics tech, first on C-5s at the time. The biggest C-5A was the biggest aircraft in the world. And then my next assignment, I ended up on the old RF-4C reconnaissance aircraft, working avionics systems there. I spent 10 years on that aircraft and then got into recruiting service. Hardest job I ever had was recruiting, but it actually led to my career out of the Air Force. So I spent 5 years in recruiting service, and then I retired after 20 years in the Air Force. Finished my degree, University of North Texas, in human resources, and then I worked as a corporate recruiter. And I can look back at that clueless kid who joined the Air Force and said everything really fell into place and took me where I needed to be. So pretty grateful that the Air Force took care of me when I had no idea what to do.
And you said you had 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers. Mm-hmm. And did they also go in the service?
No, actually, we were all so different. We really were. My older brother ran his own karate school. He was like a super high level black belt weapons award winner and all this stuff. That's Bobby. And Tommy, he got an associate degree, and he worked for DuPont for like 45 or 50 years. He just recently retired. My younger brother, David, he's 3 years younger than me. He went to a vocational school, and he now also has his own business. He can fix anything. He can gut a house and rebuild it completely. He can do all that work. And the youngest, Danny, he joined the Marine Corps. So I said, at least I influenced one of them. But he spent 4 years in the Marines. Then he got out and worked for, I can't remember, Lockheed Martin, McDonnell Douglas, one of the big aircraft companies, worked for them for about 30 some years. So they all did well.
Tell me a little bit more about, what you did when you were recruiting. I mean, you said that was very, very challenging, uh, because now those were what years that you were
Um,
in recruiting?
91, 2, and 3, I was in the Denton office. And I got there actually like December, right before that. What did we do in 90, January 91? We bombed, right? So we had both sides of it. We had the side, a lot of Vietnam era parents who said, my child is not going in the military. And then we
Right.
had lots of people who called up and said, I'm ready to go, but they're not really qualified. So it was challenging. I had to cover Denton and Wise counties by myself, competing with 3 Navy, 2 Marine, and 5 Army recruiters, all going after the same kids. So it was interesting. It was interesting. Met a lot of great people. Denton, Wise counties, very, very patriotic folks. They really are.
And you have carried that forward, because where we met was through the DFW Veterans Chamber of Commerce, which is a great group of veterans that share their vocations, their businesses and everything with each other. We help to promote each other, and just hearing you talk a little bit about recruiting and what it was like being an active part of the military that way. I mean, I'm fascinated that you worked on aircraft. Uh, was that an MOS that a lot of females were in or wanted to go into, or was it just something that was a passion for you and so you pursued it?
No, actually, they just opened up aircraft maintenance fields to women probably a year or 2 before I enlisted. And so I took the ASVAB test, and they said, oh, you scored extremely well. My recruiter, Sergeant Russell Bilyeu, still remember him. He said, you scored really well in electronics. Would you want to do that? Well, again, I'm like, I'm willing to try anything, and that's one thing with my dad. When he would work on houses, sometimes I would help him a little bit, things like that. I could use tools a little bit, kind of had the idea of putting things together and taking them apart. So I said to the recruiter, sure, I'll try. And I expect he was probably told, start finding some women to go into these fields. And it turned out great. I mean, school was, 6 months of school before I ever really got out on an aircraft. So I was taught well, but I found it to be extremely interesting, trying to figure out what happens to an aircraft in the air and then imitate it on the ground. And I really enjoyed it. That whole idea when you had, especially when I was on the old fighters. I mean, I'm working on the old Vietnam era fighters. They were amazing. And I even got to fly in the back seat of one over Germany. I got an incentive ride. But wow, when they're coming down and the pilot's calling in and he says it's a code 1 flight, and we all know that everything we did made sure that pilot and his backseater came down safe. And that's what the whole thing was all about.
It's interesting you mentioned that you were in electronics, and this is back in the early 90s, because that was really when electronics, if you will, was kind of in its infancy. Computers were just becoming useful in our everyday lives, and so you had to do an awful lot more by hand than allowing machines to do it.
Right, exactly. So I went to my tech school. Actually, 1976 is when I hit Chanute Air Force Base for my tech school, and things were. I mean, so the reconnaissance aircraft, we still had the big cameras and the big film cartridges that they would come and take out of the aircraft. We had 6 cameras actually on the old RF-4 aircraft, 1963 model. And they had these, and they would take these, the film out, and then the photo interpreter had to develop it and then figure out what they're looking at. Nowadays, I was talking to one of the pilots at an air show, and he says, with the heads-up display and everything else, he says, I literally, the natural inclination is to look down to see the ground. He says, I can look down by my feet, and I'm looking at the ground from that high up, going that fast in one of the, the 35s, or something like that. Amazing aircraft now, amazing technology.
Do you miss it? Do you miss working on the aircraft?
I do. I don't miss getting covered in hydraulic fluid, or trying to squeeze 30 feet of cable into 15 feet of space and not break any wires, or reaching backwards behind me to get to something that that's kind of hard to get to. But yes, I do. There really is a big thrill if you had to fix something, and first it goes up. So first of all, it flies, and then it comes down good.
So you put in 20 years in the Air Force, and then what does Pat Zuczek do when she finally separates from the military?
So I did finish my degree. I started taking classes one at a time while I was in Germany, one class here, one class there. And then when I got out, I said, this is something I need to do. No one else in my family at the time had graduated college. So this was something I needed to do. And I went to UNT and finished up my degree in human resources. Even before I finished, I was hired by Alcatel Telecommunications to be one of their recruiters. And actually, I did an internship with them, and then was hired on. And the similarities is I was kind of looking for technicians, looking for people who did a little bit of the idea of the work of what I did, repairing things. In that case, repairing telecommunications, laying cable, repairing towers, things like that. And Alcatel eventually, after several years, when they had the big telecom crash, I was laid off. I went to a call center. I staffed that for 4 years. I worked 4 years for a company that repaired cell phones. We used to repair cell phones.
Yeah, today you toss it and you get a new one.
Yes, this is, and it was all before the iPhone came out. We would hire people $18, $20 an hour to repair a cell phone. And then when the smartphones came out, everybody, pretty much lost their job there, because it is cheaper to throw it out than to repair one. Yes.
We're almost getting there in the automobile industry.
Almost, yes. We used to call it plug and play. You just put something in and pull something out, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And my last job that I worked with was with Brandt Engineering and the Brandt companies, and they did plumbing, piping, HVAC, and I enjoyed that because I was hiring project managers and a lot of other positions, but also getting involved with some of the technicians and the engineers, and I felt very at home with them. Part of it is hey, it's like my 4 brothers, although we lots of wonderful women engineers, extremely smart. And technicians and people who take things apart and who build things, to make this world better.
So, and you have always been a physically active individual, always going to the gym and working out and running. And as you got a little bit older, like most of us, as I got older, I blew out a knee. And then I started biking a little bit, but I couldn't run anymore. The lateral movement was shot. But there are people like you that you're like fine wine. You just get better with age. And you today are still very, very active in working out, in running. You're into pickleball. And so you have carried that forward as you've gotten into the master years that they call them, or then as you approach the senior years. You got involved with the National Senior Games Association, and folks, if you have a chance, that's nsga.com. I encourage you to just check it out. It's a great website that tells you a lot about it. But Pat, I want you to tell those that are watching and listening a little bit about what the National Senior Games Association is and what it means to you.
So the National Senior Games have actually been around since they had their first big games in 1987. And I had no clue, like most of us who were working at the time, didn't know what was going on. It started in 85 with just a group of people, 7 or 8 people, who said, hey, we need to do something to promote a healthy lifestyle for adults, because there's all kinds of organized sports and things for kids. But as we get older, I know I played co-ed ball at 40, but there's no way I could play co-ed ball at, softball at 60. So what do we do, and how do we still feel challenged? And yet, how do we not get out into a situation where we're going to get hurt? So they started at the time they called it the U.S. National Sports Association, and they found out that there were several states that had the same idea. So they got 33 states together and had the first National Senior Games, 1987, 2,500 participants. But at their opening games, Bob Hope was there as sort of the one of the speakers or MC. So they got 100,000 people who came out to watch, and suddenly it got everybody's attention. And since then, it's been getting bigger and bigger. And the whole idea is, why should we stop playing and having fun just because we're getting older? There's so many different sports. There's 17 different ways to compete, and everything from archery, and I mentioned cornhole once before, badminton, bowling, running, 5K and 10Ks. They added triathlon, right? Triathlons for 50 years old and above.
Wow.
Bicycling, and then team sports, 3-on-3 basketball, volleyball. I saw some of the volleyball. They're amazing athletes. And softball and soccer. So why should we not keep playing as we're getting older? So the senior games at the national level, pretty competitive. At the state level can be very competitive, but the whole idea is to get everybody up. So the Dallas Golden Games are actually next month in Dallas, and it's a smaller level. It's not a qualifier for the national games, but they'll have, instead of a basketball tournament, they'll have free throw shooting around the world. They want everyone, regardless of your skill level, to find a place to fit in and come out and have fun, and just keep playing. So one of their themes was "Long live the challenge." Just keep playing, regardless of your skill or your age. There's a place for you to come out and have fun.
And it's interesting because, for instance, in running, when you reach age 40, you become what they call a master runner, and all. And then where is the age delineation for the senior games? Is it 50, 60, 65?
So minimum age is 50. The calendar year that you are 50, you're eligible for the senior games. I ran the 5K in Fort Lauderdale. I thought I did really great in the 65 plus division. And I ran a 32-minute 5K, and I'm like, yeah, I did really good. This is fantastic. Yeah, except that the winner ran it in 25:42 in my age group. I was beaten by one 80-year-old woman and 5 80-year-old men.
That's it. But
Times out there.
I mean, just the fact that you were participating with people at that caliber and everything that's enough to make you say, hey, I can do this.
Exactly. And when I picked up my race number, my name was on it. Oh, this is the Olympics here. This was big time. I picked up my race number, my name, but they're treating me just like I'm a superstar athlete. Now, when I finished, probably in the middle of the pack of about 400 runners, there were so many more coming in behind me, and everybody cheers them on, just as if they're winning. It is a lot of camaraderie. Right. Now, I have to mention something about that 5K at Fort Lauderdale. There was actually a blind runner in the middle of the pack. And what happened was she got to the race and she was going to run with an app. The app wouldn't work. We were running out on the broadwalk along the beach, and her app didn't work. And she said, I came all the way here. I'm going to run. And she got in the middle of the pack and she just followed the footsteps. And she ran the whole 5K. Talk about bravery. run 3 miles without being able to see anything.
Right.
And that there are so many amazing people out there that they're not going to let something stop them from competing. I say that it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of competition there too. People do want to set their personal records. People are setting US records and world records at these games.
I think I mentioned to you back in the it must have been in the late 80s or early 90s and all. I was living in the Chicago area, and I was part of a running club that had several seniors. One of them his name was Warren Udis. Warren had run track in high school and then didn't run track again until he retired and started running again at about age 60. He became went to the international senior games several times and held the record for the marathon in his age group every year for something like 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
And there were so many other people that you would just listen to their times. And this was a man who was in his 60s. And if I'm not mistaken, he was running, oh gosh, what was I don't remember his times, but he could run about a 3:20 marathon. Which I mean I was happy if I could run 3:20 for a half marathon. But you're right, to be around those people. They became inspirational.
Yes.
You talked about the blind runner. I remember, and I was a back of the packer, but my claim to fame was I usually finished running the same pace as I started. I was I didn't shoot out of the box like a lot of people do and then burn out. But I was running I think it was a 5K, might have been a 10K, and all of a sudden I was always cognizant of somebody that was coming up behind me because that would be my next target to follow. Somebody would pass you would try to stay on their butt to help them carry you through. And this guy passed me on my left side, and there was something about his gait that was a little bit strange. He was running with a prosthesis. And this was before they came out with these really high-tech prosthesises and all. But I was thinking to myself, you're being passed by a guy who basically has one good leg and he's dragging the other one. But I was so impressed that I was determined that he was going to beat me to the finish line. There was no doubt about that, but I wasn't going to be far behind him. And that's what's inspirational about it. And I mean, I'm sure that you have lots of stories of people that you connected with when you were running, and some that you thought, oh, I can beat her, and then all of a sudden she smokes you in after the turnaround or so.
Oh, exactly. Well, the games in Pittsburgh, their theme was bridging champions through the ages, and so they want to talk about the impact that the older athletes can have on the younger generations. So there was a competitor out there. He's the oldest one from Pennsylvania, 95 years old. And he competes in cycling. I believe they said he was the oldest one to complete the 20-kilometer bicycle race. And he said he has 12 children, 42 grandchildren, 48 great-grandchildren, and they all bicycle because of him. And so, that's just a lot of what they said. The bridging the champions, we're at Three Rivers, all the bridges in Pennsylvania. So it was a nice little tie in there. But I have to tell you about Miss Mary Kemp. I actually met Mary Kemp in Fort Lauderdale. And so talk about inspiring. I saw this teeny tiny lady sitting at a table with some of the Alabama players. And I saw them because they had the greatest shirts. The Alabama shirts are really nice. So I see her sitting there. She's got a gold medal around her neck. And I have to go over and talk to her. So this is what I learned about Miss Mary Kemp. She was 100 years old. She ran the 50-meter dash and took gold. She was also a World War II Army veteran. When she graduated high school, I think she was from Ohio. She worked in a Jeep factory for a short time, but she and her girlfriend from high school, what are they going to do? They joined the Army back in the 40s. And she actually served in a clerical job for 4 years. So she was a gold medalist, 100 years old, and an Army veteran. And just an amazing. Oh, and the other part, she did not even start competing. She always stayed in shape. She didn't start competing till she was 95. So we all have a lot to look forward to.
That's amazing. Well, just looking over your shoulder, you just have a wall filled with medals, and those are are those from a variety of different events?
They're mostly pickleball and 5K, 10K races. I used to do a lot more 10Ks. Now it's a lot more 5Ks now. But some of the pickleball that I started in the last few years also. Some basketball medals that I have from playing 3-on-3 senior basketball and then coaching 3-on-3 senior basketball. So that's where they all come from. It's a nice little memento that that you like to bring back.
It sure is impressive on that wall. It really is. The last senior games that you were in was when?
It was just July. I was in Pittsburgh in July. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what events did you compete in?
So this year, I couldn't make it to Pittsburgh for the 5K. So what I did was I continued on my job coaching my 75-year-old ladies in 3-on-3 basketball. I coached the 75s and the 60-year-olds. So they're pretty impressive, I have to say. Barbara, Mary, Linda, Betty, and Jean, they and Carol. Carol couldn't get out there this year, but those are, I call them my girls, and they're all 75 and above. A couple of them are pushing 80. And so we had the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, and I have to say that the ladies brought back the bronze medal. So
wow.
They came third in the 75 plus division. And it was such an exciting finish because the game was tied. They played 2 15-minute halves, and the game was tied with a minute to go, passing around. They miss a shot. We miss a shot. We get the ball, and Barbara gets fouled with 4 seconds to go in the game. And she gets on that free throw line and sinks the basket. I mean, think about it. Everybody's looking at you and everything, and it's so easy to blow your free throw. And she puts it in. We kill the clock for 4 seconds, and we end up winning by 1 point. And I'm just so proud of them. I'm really proud of them because here we go. They're repeat winners. This is the senior games.
Really?
Yes, they took third in the nation in Fort Lauderdale in the 2021 games. So they're a good. And
how often are the senior games?
So
every 4 years.
The games happen every year, but the national games are every odd year. So the even year is a qualifying year. And then the odd year is when they hold a big national competition. And the next one's going to be in Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, we get these games had over 11,500 athletes.
What?
So it takes a lot of work to put on the national games. And yes, and of course they're bringing family members.
11,000 seniors.
Yes, 50 and above. I said the oldest athlete overall, I believe, was 104 this year. Mm-hmm. So it takes a lot to put on the games. So Des Moines is already working on having the games ready in 2025.
Now, are you planning on competing in Des Moines?
I am. I've got to get back out on the track. I'll see the games are I think they're about 11 or 12 days long. And this year I just couldn't get out there for the whole time. but I'm planning on it. I want to run again. Certainly want to see. I have I have young basketball players. They're only 60 years old. And, they are working really hard. They were fairly new this year. They came in 7th out of 22 teams. That's still pretty impressive.
It is.
And so we're practicing now. We're working. In fact, we just had practice on Tuesday, working on our pick and roll and break into the basket. And so we're all planning on being in Des Moines in 2025.
Now, are you going to play 3-on-3 or are you just going to coach?
Well, I think I'm going to coach. And the reason is I played in Albuquerque, and we didn't have a team in my age group. So I played down with the 55s. This is fun, but it's competitive. There'll be a couple of black eyes out on the court. There'll be some elbows thrown. We were playing a team from New York, and it was a close game, and she came driving in, and I moved over to take the charge. I took that charge. And when I got up, my right wrist was a nice S shape. So I left the games with a lot of titanium in my wrist. So I said,
So will you said you also play pickleball. Will you compete? Will you compete in pickleball also?
If I can qualify, I'm telling you, pickleball has some, it's the fastest growing sport for seniors. I have not qualified yet. And that's the toughest part. There's so many people who want to play, and they want to play at the national level. And I have not won a high enough tournament. I've not medaled in a tournament yet to qualify to be able to play. But that is something else that I certainly would like to do coming up at the next games.
It's absolutely amazing to me. So I guess my next question that comes to mind is, for those that are watching and listening to this show that are over the age of 50, what advice do you have for them if they are even semi-active?
Well, we get to the point as we hit 50 and somehow we become, seniors and elders or olders, and we're tired of exercising. We just hate to exercise, but we've always loved to play. So why shouldn't we just keep playing as we get older? If you don't like to go to the gym and lift weights, or you don't like to run around a track for, around and around and around and around, find something that will get your feet moving. And the aerobics that we use, the Jane Fonda aerobics from years ago, right? The benches and the step and everything like that. They have the jazzercise, the dance, move your feet. Get in with a group if you can. I do a fit camp every morning at Outlaw Fit Camp here in the Flower Mound area. And there's 10 of us usually that get together and do this fit camp. And, we just encourage each other. We ask, hey, why weren't you here yesterday? But find something that you like to do. I used to laugh at my mom. My mom and my stepdad would go to the polka spree by the sea, 3 days of nonstop polka dancing. But when I look back at it, I go, oh my gosh, do you know how hard it is to do a polka for 7 minutes? There's a lot of jumping and turning and spinning, and they're healthy. Their heart rate is up. They're working their muscles. They're moving their blood. They're working their hearts. It's all good. Find something that you want to have fun with. The local YMCAs, your rec center, the Thrive Rec Center here in Louisville. There's lots of programs to just keep moving and keep having fun. And then if you want to be competitive, believe me, there's a lot of people out there that are just, I don't want to say they're out for blood, but yeah, they really want to win. And there are different venues for people who want to go for the gold every time.
Well, and I think a key point that you were alluding to also was doing this with somebody else. To open the door and go out and try and run on your own or bike on your own, very often it's too easy to talk yourself out of it. But when you have a team, or you have 3 or 4 other people that you are running, training, playing pickleball with, you want to show up, even though you might not be feeling well that morning. You're going to show up for their benefit. And also that is also then helping you too.
Exactly. Your battle buddy, and the battle
Yep.
is against being unhealthy. Get your battle buddy and say, we're going to meet at this time. And I'll bet neither one of you want to say, I'm not strong enough to get out there, or I don't want to, or I'm not determined enough. You're both going to show up, no matter if it's raining outside or hopefully not 110 degrees outside running. But yes, get your accountability partner or
Right.
a group of people, and it really helps to have someone else to meet up with.
Well, and folks, again, check out the National Senior Games Association, nsga.com. They'll give you the information, and right there on the site, you'll be able to see where some of their chapters are located around the country and get involved. If they don't have it, go to your local YMCA or YWCA and all, and see if they have senior programs that you can get involved in, because it's a great way to mix with other people. Certainly, we have over 55 communities all over the country where people get together and play pickleball and work out together. But to get together and maybe try and do it more competitively, the only thing you can do is keep you younger feeling. That's for sure. But this is a great website, and check it out. See what it's all about. Get involved. Find out. And P. Zuczek, PZUCZEK 57 at gmail.com is Pat's email. I mean, look at these guys. My goodness, you don't think of them as seniors.
Exactly. I've met a 92-year-old bowler, just people of all ages, and the veteran connection too. That's
Yeah.
another thing. All the guys have their hats on that say veteran. I had a shirt on that said aircraft maintenance. Before I knew it, we were all hooked up, just looking for other veterans, cheering them on. Just such a great community. Sally and Philip Bloxham, they're from Oklahoma, met them out on the watching pickleball. We started chasing down all the veterans we could find, cheering them on victory. It is one big family.
It's one. Well, I congratulate you on all of the medals that you've got on your wall. I congratulate you on all of your efforts to keep people involved in the senior games. I thank you very, very much for your service to the country, and just keep on doing what you're doing. You have got a heart of gold, and I hope you win it.
Thank you. Awesome.
Win the
Thank
gold
you.
again. Well, I end my show by quoting Oscar Wilde, and I say, "Be yourself, because everyone else is taken." And in the case of somebody like Pat Zuczek, yeah, be yourself, because you're a winner. And I thank you very, very much for being a guest on the show.
Awesome. It was my pleasure.
All right, that'll do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know. Go out and make it a great day. And thank you again to Someone You Should Know, Pat Zuczek. Take care, Pat.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Someone you